My father always told me that my best friend's uncle was a monster. When I found out the truth, I showed him the proof, but he tried to shut me down and keep us apart. So I dug even deeper and uncovered a secret so dark it shattered everything I thought I knew about trust, family, and fear. The day Marcus walked into our classroom, the whole place went quiet, like someone had shut off the air conditioning and nobody remembered to breathe. My name's Jonah. I'm 12 years old, and I live in Brunswick, Missouri. It's a small town, the kind where everyone knows each other's business and nobody forgets anything, especially not rumors. Mrs. Ricks, our teacher, stood stiffly at the front of the room with a tight smile. Class, this is Marcus. He'll be joining us for the rest of the year. Marcus looked normal. He had on clean jeans, a red hoodie, and a backpack with a patch from some space camp. He nodded once at the class, then glanced around, probably wondering why no one smiled back. Even Mrs. Ricks didn't ask him to introduce himself, just told him to take the open seat by the windows, the one no one ever took, not even after Jessica moved away. He walked over and sat down slowly, and the rest of us went back to our math books, pretending we weren't watching him, except I was. Something felt off, not about Marcus, but about how everyone acted like he came in carrying a disease. At lunch, I passed on sitting with my usual group and spotted him alone near the back. He hadn't even unpacked his tray, just poked at the milk carton. I walked over. Mind if I sit? He blinked up at me, surprised. Sure. I slid in across from him. I'm Jonah. He hesitated, then gave a small nod. Marcus. We sat quiet for a minute, and I could feel the stares from the other tables. Even Caleb, my best friend since second grade, raised an eyebrow at me like I was doing something insane. You just moved here? I asked. Yeah, last weekend. Where from? Downstate. Don't remember the name. He said it fast, like it didn't matter. Cool. I opened my milk and took a sip. This place isn't that bad. Food sucks, though. That got a tiny smile from him. Yeah, guess that's everywhere. We started talking about video games and movies. Turns out he loved old monster flicks, like black and white Godzilla stuff, and I forgot we were supposed to be different. When I got home that afternoon, I dropped my backpack and went straight to the kitchen. Dad was chopping onions, getting dinner ready. He's a single dad, works construction, and makes the best chili in town. Hey, Dad, we got a new kid in class today. Yeah, he didn't look up. What's his name? Marcus. He's cool. Sat with me at lunch. That's when he froze. Not dramatically, just paused, mid-chop. I still on the cutting board. What was his last name? I think it's Connor. Why? He set the knife down and wiped his hands on a dish towel, still not looking at me. Nothing. Just be careful, okay? I frowned. Why? He's just a kid. He finally turned to me. Just trust me, Jonah. Some people come with baggage, but I didn't care. Marcus hadn't done anything wrong. If anything, the way everyone looked at him, like he was radioactive, made me want to sit even closer. I didn't know it yet, but that lunch was the start of everything. The next morning started weird. Dad kept glancing over at me during breakfast, like he was trying to figure out if I'd grown a second head overnight. I was halfway through my cereal when he finally said it. You're not sitting with that boy again today. I looked up, spoon halfway to my mouth. Marcus? Why not? He set his coffee down hard. Because I said so, Jonah. That family's got a history. Trust me, it's better if you keep your distance. I stared at him. What kind of history? Dad shook his head. Don't worry about it. Just do what I'm telling you. That didn't sound like nothing. That sounded like something very specific, something he didn't want to say out loud. Did he do something? I asked. It's not about him, Dad said. A little too fast. It's about his uncle. I shouldn't be around kids. That's all. I pushed my bowl away. Marcus didn't do anything wrong. That's not the point. Dad stood and grabbed his keys. You'll thank me later. I didn't say another word, but I knew I wasn't going to just stop talking to Marcus. It didn't sit right. None of it did. At school, things felt worse. Mrs. Ricks didn't mention Marcus at all. She just handed out spelling packets and went back to her desk, barely even looking at him. When we were told to find partners for a worksheet, I stood to move toward Marcus's table. Mrs. Ricks cleared her throat sharply and called out, Jonah, let's have you work with Ethan today. It wasn't a suggestion. I turned, confused. But Marcus. Ethan, she repeated, firmer this time. I sat next to Ethan, who gave me a weird look like I'd brought this on myself. Marcus didn't say anything. He just scooted his chair closer to the window and opened his workbook alone. Recess was worse. Usually, the blacktop's full of noise, kids shouting, running, bouncing basketballs. But today, there was this tension, like we were all pretending not to look at Marcus. He stood alone near the fence, hands in his hoodie pocket, staring down at the gravel. He didn't try to join anyone, and no one invited him. I felt sick watching it. Later, as school let out, I saw him waiting near the flagpole. A rusty blue truck pulled up, the kind that made you hear it before you saw it. An older man stepped out. He wore overalls, had a gray beard, and moved like his back hurt. That must have been the uncle. As Marcus climbed into the truck, the playground moms suddenly sprang into motion. One by one, they grabbed their kids' hands, called out names, rushed little brothers into minivans. It was like watching dominoes fall in fast motion. I saw Mrs. Dahl, whose kid was in kindergarten, yank her son by the arm just because he looked in Marcus's direction. Another mom muttered something under her breath. I couldn't hear it all, but I caught the words shouldn't be allowed near a school. The man didn't say anything. He just opened the passenger door for Marcus and got back behind the wheel. That's when I started to wonder, not about Marcus, about everyone else, about how quick people were to judge, about why no one was telling the whole story, and about how scared everyone looked, even when nothing had happened. A week passed. Most kids still avoided Marcus like he was contagious. But I didn't. I kept talking to him before class, during free reading, whenever I could without getting scolded. We never talked about what happened at recess or the way people stared. Mostly, we talked about movies. He'd seen The Thing way too many times, and I started watching old monster flicks at night just to keep up. Then, one afternoon, something happened that changed everything. We had early dismissal because of plumbing issues at school. Dad couldn't get off work, so I walked home. I cut through the back alley behind the church, a dumb shortcut, but faster. Halfway through, 3 older kids stopped me. I didn't know their names, but they looked like high schoolers, maybe seniors. One had a split lip. The biggest one grinned as he stepped in front of me. "Hey, you got any money?" I laughed nervously. "No." He stepped closer. "Not even lunch money?" Before I could answer, another kid shoved me from behind. I stumbled into the fence and dropped my backpack. My elbow scraped the gravel. I heard them laughing. They grabbed my bag, dumped it out, and kicked through my notebooks like they were trash. "Please," I said. "I don't have anything, eh?" The big one raised his arm, like he was gonna hit me. "Hey." The voice shot through the air like a bullet. We all turned. Marcus's uncle was there, standing at the edge of the alley, hands in his jacket pockets, his face unreadable. He didn't look angry, just calm, steady. The big kid blinked. "What do you want, old man?" The uncle didn't move. 3-on-1's not fair, boys. Pick on someone your size. You better get out of here. "Or what?" the uncle asked, still not raising his voice. "You'll swing at a 12-year-old again?" That made them hesitate. A long beat passed. Then one of them muttered something and walked off. The others followed, grumbling like they'd just been robbed of a prize. I sat on the ground, still stunned. Marcus's uncle walked over, bent down, and started picking up my notebooks. "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, just scared." He handed me my stuff. "You got lucky today. Don't take alleys." "Not alone." I nodded again. "Thanks for helping me." He nodded once, then turned and walked off. That night, I told Dad what happened. He didn't say, "Thank God," or "I'm glad you're okay." He only asked, "Wait, who helped you?" I told him. That's when he lost it. "You're telling me that man came near you?" "He stopped those guys," I said. "He didn't do anything wrong." Dad didn't hear me. He was already on the phone with the school. The next morning, Marcus's uncle wasn't outside anymore. And after lunch, Mrs. Ricks made a quick announcement. Going forward, only approved guardians will be allowed on school grounds. No exceptions. No one said his name, but we all knew who she meant. They banned him. The man who saved me from getting beat up. That's when I started to think, really think, that something about this whole story didn't add up. I waited 2 more days before I said anything. Marcus still came to school, still sat alone, still looked out the window like he wasn't really there. But something in him had changed, like a light had dimmed behind his eyes. On Friday, I stayed after class to help clean up, then caught him at his locker. "Hey," I said, "want to come to the library for a sec?" He looked at me, cautious. "Why?" I shrugged. "I got a question. Something only you can answer." He didn't say anything at first, but then he sighed and followed me. We sat at the very back corner of the library, behind the old biography section. It was quiet. No one ever came back there. I leaned in. "Why does everyone think your uncle's dangerous?" Marcus stared at me, frozen. I didn't push, just waited. Finally, he let out a breath. "Because my mom said so." He didn't look at me when he said it, just twisted the drawstring of his hoodie around his finger. "She told everyone he was violent, said he had a temper, that he hurt her, that he shouldn't be near kids. Is it true?" I asked. Marcus looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw the answer in his face before he said a word. "No," he whispered. "She lied. She always lies." He pulled his backpack onto his lap and unzipped the front pocket. Then, slowly, he handed me a file folder, old, worn, taped at the edges. Inside were copies of photos, papers, even a few medical reports. One had a black and white photo of Marcus as a little kid with bruises on his shoulder. Another was a hospital intake form with his name and his mom's listed as the caregiver. "She used to hit me," Marcus said, voice flat. "A lot. Told people I fell, or I was clumsy. But my uncle, he found out." He flipped to a page that looked like a court document. He called CPS, took her to court. I was 5. They gave him emergency custody, but it was all quiet. No press. My mom told people he threatened her. Said he took me away because he hated her. He paused. People believed her. Because she's charming. Because she cries real good. I felt like the floor dropped out beneath me. All the stuff people think about him? It's her story. She moved to a different town, told it again and again, and nobody ever questioned it. He looked up at me, eyes glassy but dry. He saved me, and now he has to hide. I didn't know what to say. For once, I couldn't find any words. "How come nobody knows this?" I finally asked. He gave a sad smile. "Because no one ever asked. You're the first." He leaned back and stared at the bookshelves like they might swallow him up. "Sometimes I think it'd be easier to let them keep believing it. Pretend it's true. That way, at least it makes sense, right? Why people treat us like this?" I shook my head. "No, that's not right." He didn't answer. But in that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't just let this stay buried. Not anymore. By Monday, I had a plan. It wasn't a great plan, and it definitely wasn't a smart one, but it was something. I couldn't stand the idea of everyone still whispering about Marcus and his uncle like they were monsters. Not when I'd seen the truth with my own eyes. I started at home. While Dad was at work, I used our old family laptop in the den. I searched Marcus's mom's name, digging through old articles and court records. A couple things came up. An arrest from about 7 years ago in a different county, something about endangerment and child neglect. Charges dropped, but it matched the timeline Marcus showed me. I printed everything I could. Every time I found something, I highlighted it. I organized a binder like I was prepping for a school project. Articles, screenshots, old blog posts, even a random comment someone left on a parenting forum back in 2016. Avoid this woman. She's manipulative, lies about everything. It wasn't exactly concrete, but it painted a picture. By Thursday, I had over 20 pages. That's when Dad found out. I'd fallen asleep with the laptop still open. He came home early from work and saw the search history. "What the hell is this?" he asked, shaking my shoulder. I blinked awake. "What? It's just research, oh." "Research?" His voice was sharp. "Jonah, I told you to stay away from that boy." I sat up straighter. He didn't do anything wrong. His mom was the one, eh? "I don't care," Dad snapped. "I don't want you involved in this mess." He yanked the binder off the table and flipped it open. His face changed as he read. Not disbelief, just anger. But I couldn't tell if it was aimed at the pages or me. "You think this is your job? To fix this?" he asked. "No one else will," I said. "Everyone's just repeating a lie." He stared at me. Then he walked over to the wall and unplugged the Wi-Fi router. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Enough. No more internet. No more printing. And I'm taking your phone and laptop. You're grounded." I opened my mouth to argue, but he was already walking out of the room. So just like that, I was cut off. No devices. No printing. No way to talk to Marcus, at least not the usual way. But I wasn't done. At school, I started sneaking into the library during lunch. I used the old desktop computers no one ever touched, printing 3 pages at a time and hiding them in the back of my math textbook. Marcus and I stopped talking in public. Instead, I left him notes, tucked inside the back covers of books I knew he read, like The Martian Chronicles and A Wrinkle in Time. He started leaving answers. One day, I found a sticky note inside Ender's Game that just said, "Try the county clerk's site. Birth records from 2013 show he had custody." I smiled so hard I had to duck behind a shelf so no one would see. We were building something, piece by piece. A case. A map of the truth. I kept copies of everything at school now, hidden in a folder behind the ancient encyclopedias. I made sure no one saw me, especially not Mrs. Ricks. By the end of the week, the binder was thicker than ever. It wasn't perfect, but it was growing. Proof that Marcus's uncle wasn't some criminal. He was a man who tried to save a kid and got buried under a lie. And now it was up to me to dig him out. It started with a whisper and turned into a storm. At first, it was just side eyes in the hallway. Teachers who used to smile at me now nodded stiffly or looked away. My friend Caleb barely talked to me anymore. When I sat at our usual lunch table, he grabbed his tray and moved. But I didn't stop. I kept sneaking into the library, kept passing notes to Marcus, hidden in the pages of sci-fi books and old history anthologies. We were piecing together the puzzle. Timelines, custody records, old addresses, court notes no one cared to notice the first time. Then the rumors began. I overheard Mrs. Ricks talking to another teacher outside the classroom door. "I'm not saying he's dangerous," she whispered, "but something's going on with Jonah. He's obsessed." Then came the phone call from the school counselor. My dad had to take off work to meet with them. "She's worried," Dad said when he came home that evening. "Worried you're showing signs of emotional distress. They think you need to talk to someone. Maybe weekly therapy." I laughed. "For what? For finding out the truth?" "That's not how they see it," he muttered. I thought that would be the worst of it, but it wasn't. On Friday, I found a flyer in my locker. Plain paper, typed in bold. "Keep your kids safe. Ask why Jonah Wexler is sneaking around the school library every day. Ask why he's defending a man with a known violent history." There was no name at the bottom, but I didn't need one. Mrs. Johansson, our next-door neighbor, had always been the kind of person who turned anything into town gossip. She once told Dad that our grass length invited crime. She ran the PDA now, and apparently, a smear campaign. That afternoon, I was pulled from science class and taken to the office. They said I was being separated for my safety, but they didn't say from what. I wasn't allowed near Marcus anymore. We weren't in the same group for projects, couldn't sit at the same table, couldn't talk in the hallway without getting called out. A teacher was now assigned to monitor us at lunch. The next day, someone slipped a folded paper into my backpack. No name, just 5 words, written in thick black ink. "Drop it or you'll regret it." My hands shook as I read it. That night, Dad sat me down. "Jonah," he said quietly. I looked at the binder. My heart stopped. He rubbed his face. "I don't know what to think. I mean, it looks real, all of it, but it's a lot." "It is real," I said. "I've seen the files, the bruises, the documents." He stared at the floor. "Then why doesn't anyone else care?" I didn't have an answer for that. I wanted to scream, because they're scared, but I knew it wouldn't help. After a long silence, Dad finally said, "Let me see the rest. Everything you've got." I handed him the second binder I'd hidden under my bed. It took him over an hour to read through it. He didn't say anything the whole time. When he closed it, He looked at me differently. Not angry, not afraid, just torn. I believe you, he said at last. But Jonah, if you keep going, it's only going to get worse. I nodded. I know. And I meant it. Because even if everyone else turned against me, I wasn't turning my back on Marcus. Not now. Not ever. Marcus didn't show up to school on Monday. Or Tuesday. By Wednesday, his name was scrubbed from the attendance list like he'd never existed. I knew something was wrong. No one just disappears. I tried asking around, but the only answer I got came from Caleb, who muttered, "Guess his uncle finally skipped town." That night, I biked through town like I was chasing ghosts. Checked the park where Marcus liked to sit. The corner store where his uncle used to buy coffee. Nothing. I was about to head home when I spotted something strange in the back lot of the old hardware store. A blue pickup truck with one flat tire, windows fogged from the inside. I crept closer. Through the glass, I saw Marcus, curled up in the passenger seat, hoodie pulled over his face. His uncle sat in the front, head leaning back, eyes closed like he hadn't slept in days. I knocked on the window. Marcus's eyes snapped open. He unlocked the door. "Jonah." I climbed in. "What happened? Why are you here?" He looked embarrassed. "We got evicted." "What?" "My uncle lost his job at the school, and nobody in town will hire him. He tried to get something out of town, but then the landlord said we were disruptive to the neighborhood. They can't do that." "They did." I stared at him, stunned. "You've been living in your truck?" He nodded. "Since Saturday." That night, I told my dad everything. Showed him the eviction notice Marcus's uncle had taped to the dash. Told him how the landlord suddenly raised the rent, then threatened to call the police when they couldn't pay. Dad looked like he was going to punch a hole through the wall. "We can't let this happen," I said. "We have to do something." He nodded slowly. "Let's get them some food. Blankets. Whatever we can." We drove to a grocery store that night and filled up 2 bags with canned goods, protein bars, bottled water, even some clean clothes. We dropped them off at the lot just before midnight. Marcus's uncle thanked us so quietly I barely heard him. But I wasn't finished. The next day, I skipped lunch and snuck into the AV room. I used the school's old video camera and sat down in front of a blank whiteboard. "My name is Jonah Wexler," I said to the lens. "I'm 12, and this is the truth about Marcus Connor and his uncle." I showed the evidence, the medical reports, court documents, witness statements. I held up the flyer someone had made about me and read it word for word. "Everything in here is a lie," I said. "But the truth? It's right here." When I was done, I uploaded the video to a private channel. Then I emailed the link to every student and parent email I could find, and every teacher at the school. By morning, the whole town had seen it. The fallout came fast. Some people were furious, not at Marcus, but at themselves, at how easily they'd believed the worst. Others doubled down, claiming it was fake, that I'd been manipulated. But the silence was broken. The lie had a crack in it now, and no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't patch it up. The backlash didn't wait. 2 days after the video dropped, the local news showed up at the school gates. A reporter shoved a mic at Mrs. Ricks, who slammed the door in his face. Parents flooded the district board with emails, some demanding apologies, others calling me a dangerous influence. And then Marcus's mom showed up. I hadn't seen her before, not in person, but I recognized her from one of the photos in Marcus's binder. The same carefully styled hair, the same soft smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She stood outside the school that Friday, sobbing in front of a TV crew. "My son has been taken from me," she said. "He's being manipulated, hidden. I'm his mother, and I deserve to know where he is." Every word out of her mouth made my skin crawl. That night, Marcus vanished. His uncle's truck was gone from the lot. No one knew where they went. The rumor mill roared to life. Some said they'd fled town. Others claimed CPS had taken Marcus back into state custody. Dad and I checked every motel, every shelter. Nothing. Then, Sunday afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't know. "She has him. Shed behind Dale's house. Hurry." My stomach dropped. Dale was a guy who worked with Marcus's mom years ago. He lived outside town, near the train tracks, had a yard full of rusted furniture and junked lawnmowers. I showed the message to Dad. We didn't hesitate. We drove straight there, called the cops from the car. I was shaking so bad I could barely dial. When we arrived, Dale was out front, arguing with someone on the porch. As soon as he saw the police cruiser, he bolted inside. The officers fanned out. I followed one toward the backyard. There, behind a rotting fence and a pile of broken tires, was a padlocked shed. "Help!" a voice cried from inside. "Please, help! Marcus!" The officer didn't wait. He broke the lock with a crowbar, yanked the door open, and Marcus stumbled out, blinking in the daylight. His lip was split. His wrists were tied behind his back with a cable cord. I caught him before he fell. "It was her," he whispered. "She said she was taking me home. I didn't want to go." Then he just started sobbing. His mom was arrested that night. Turns out she'd filed a false police report saying Marcus had run away. She'd convinced Dale to let her store some things in the shed for a few days. When they found her in Dale's basement, she was trying to pack up photo albums, ones that Marcus had told me were stolen from his uncle years ago. The media flipped. Suddenly, everyone wanted an interview. The same news anchors who'd replayed her fake, crying now aired clips of the police press conference. Old abuse cases were reopened. Marcus's testimony was recorded from the hospital, and I got subpoenaed to testify in court. I'd never been inside a courtroom before. It was colder than I expected, the kind of place where even breathing too loud felt wrong. Her lawyer tried to twist everything. "Isn't it true," he asked, "that you have a personal vendetta against the defendant?" "No," I said. "I just believe the truth matters." He waved my binder in the air like it was a toy. "Where did you get these documents?" "I found them," I said, voice steady, "because nobody else would." He smirked. "You're 12, Jonah." I looked him dead in the eye. And that's still old enough to tell when someone's lying. The courtroom went quiet. The judge let the statement stand. When I walked out, I saw Marcus and his uncle waiting by the doors. Marcus gave me a crooked smile. "You're kinda crazy, you know that?" "Yeah," I said, "but I'm right." The trial ended on a Tuesday. Marcus's mother was found guilty of kidnapping, obstruction, and making false statements to law enforcement. The reopened abuse investigations from years back were now moving forward in 2 other counties. This time, she wasn't going to wiggle out of it with tears and fake charm. Marcus's uncle was officially cleared. The school had to issue a public apology, not just to him, but to Marcus, too. They offered to reinstate his job, but he turned it down. "Some doors," he told my dad, "once they close, you don't walk back through." That Friday, I came home to find Marcus and his uncle sitting at our kitchen table. They were moving out of town, heading west, where a friend had offered them a place to stay and a new start. We ate dinner like a real family that night. No sideways looks, no whispered warnings. Just talking, laughing, passing mashed potatoes across the table like none of the chaos had ever happened. When it was time to say goodbye, Marcus handed me something small wrapped in a handkerchief. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a vintage brass compass. The kind with a cracked glass face and a wobbly needle that still pointed north. "It was my uncle's," Marcus said, "from before everything. He said when things got messy, he'd use it just to feel like he still had direction." I held it in my hand. It was heavier than it looked. "I want you to have it," he said. "You got us through the storm." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and hugged him. "You're gonna be okay, right?" "We already are." He smiled, then followed his uncle out the door. They left before sunrise. By Monday, they were gone. At school, people still whispered. Some apologized, mostly teachers, a few parents. Others pretended like nothing ever happened, like they hadn't turned their backs when it counted. But that was fine. I wasn't doing it for them. That night, I made one last post to the video channel I'd created. Just me, sitting in front of the camera again, the compass in my hand. "I didn't do this for attention," I said, "or to stir up drama. I did it because it was right, because the truth matters, even when people don't want to hear it." I looked straight at the camera. "And if you're scared to speak up, I get it. But remember, you don't have to be loud. You just have to be brave. Even a kid can change a town." I ended the video and shut the laptop. In the living room, Dad was reading a book. He looked up at me, and for once, there was nothing but pride in his eyes. "You did good, Jonah." I smiled. Later that night, I placed the compass on my bookshelf, right between the Martian Chronicles and Ender's Game. It still points north. But now, so do I.